Most individuals walk through life unaware of the invisible threads that bind their hearts to others. Threads woven from unspoken desires, buried wounds, and the silent ache for connection. Yet in the dance between the narcissist and the empath, these threads become chains subtly forged, gleaming with deception. The narcissist's greatest trick is not merely to wound, but to convince the empath that the wound was always theirs, that their very sensitivity is the flaw. This is a tale of shadows and mirrors, of egos projecting their darkness and empaths absorbing it, mistaking it for their own. It is a story rooted in the deep currents of the psyche, where Jung's archetypes, the wounded healer, the trickster, the shadow, collide with the raw pulse of human longing and the fragile scaffolding of self-worth. Consider the empath, that tender soul whose heart beats in rhythm with the world's unspoken pain. They are the ones who feel too much, who carry the collective unconscious in their bones, sensing the undercurrents of others' emotions as if they were their own. Jung might call them the embodiment of the anima, the soul's bridge to the divine feminine, attuned to the subtle vibrations of existence. Yet this gift is also their vulnerability. The empath's porous boundaries, their openness to the world's suffering, make them a beacon for the narcissist, whose own psyche is a labyrinth of mirrors reflecting only the self. The narcissist, in their unintegrated shadow, hungers for validation, for a stage upon which their grandeur can shine. And who better to cast in the supporting role than the empath, whose light they can both bask in and dim? The narcissist's art is subtle, a sleight of hand that begins with enchantment. They weave a spell of charm, their words dripping with honeyed promises, their gaze a mirror that seems to reflect the empath's deepest desires. You, the empath, might feel seen for the first time, as if someone has peered into the hidden chambers of your soul and whispered, "I understand." But this is the first illusion. The narcissist does not see you. They see a canvas for their own projection, a vessel for their unmet needs. Their admiration is not love, but a transaction, a means to secure your devotion. And you, with your heart open like a flower to the sun, may not yet see the shadow creeping in. This dynamic is no mere interpersonal clash, but a collision of archetypes, a dance of ego and soul. The narcissist, trapped in the grip of their inflated ego, projects their shadow, their insecurities, their shame onto the empath. Jung taught that the shadow holds what we refuse to acknowledge, the parts of ourselves we cast out. For the narcissist, this shadow is unbearable, a chasm of inadequacy they cannot face. So they externalize it, draping it over the empath like a cloak. You are too sensitive, they say. You overreact. You're the one who's broken. And the empath, whose own shadow may whisper doubts about their worth, begins to believe it. This is the narcissist's greatest trick, to convince you that their darkness is yours. Attachment theory illuminates this further. The narcissist, often rooted in an avoidant or disorganized attachment style, thrives on control, keeping others at a distance while craving their adoration. The empath, frequently tethered to an anxious attachment, seeks closeness, validation, yearning to heal and be healed. This interplay is a perfect storm. The narcissist's withdrawal triggers the empath's fear of abandonment, pulling them deeper into the cycle of self-doubt. You chase their approval, believing that if you could just be enough less emotional, more perfect, you could restore the harmony you felt in those fleeting early moments. But harmony was never the goal. The narcissist's aim is dominion, not connection. As the empath internalizes the narcissist's projections, their own individuation, the Jungian journey toward wholeness, is stalled. The empath's light dims, their sense of self fractured by the weight of blame. You might ask yourself late at night, when the world is quiet, why you feel so heavy, so wrong. The answer lies in the alchemy of this dynamic, where the narcissist's unacknowledged shadow merges with your own unhealed wounds. The collective unconscious hums beneath it all, whispering archetypes of sacrifice and betrayal, urging you to see the truth. The problem was never you. It was the illusion you were made to carry. The dance between the narcissist and the empath is not a fleeting waltz. but a labyrinthine spiral, each step deeper into the psyche's uncharted depths. The empath, with their heart attuned to the world's silent cries, becomes ensnared in the narcissist's mirror maze, where every reflection distorts their truth. The narcissist's words, once sweet as nectar, now carry a subtle venom, each syllable crafted to erode the empath's sense of self. This is no accident but a calculated alchemy, where the narcissist's unintegrated shadow, those fragments of shame, fear, and inadequacy they cannot face, becomes a weapon. They wield it with precision, projecting their inner chaos onto the empath, who like a sponge absorbs it, mistaking it for their own. The empath's sensitivity, their gift of feeling the world's pulse, becomes the very ground on which this battle is fought. You who sense the unspoken grief in a stranger's glance, who carry the weight of others' unvoiced pain, are uniquely vulnerable to this sleight of hand. The narcissist exploits this, turning your compassion against you. They might praise your depth in one breath only to call it weakness in the next. You're too much, they say, or you're imagining things. And you, with your heart open to the possibility of your own flaws, begin to question. Is it you? Are you the one who feels too deeply, who disrupts the fragile equilibrium? The narcissist's trick is to make you believe that your very essence, your empathy, is the problem. Jung's concept of the shadow looms large here, a specter that haunts both players in this drama. For the narcissist, the shadow is a repository of all they cannot bear to acknowledge: their fragility, their neediness, their fear of being ordinary. To face this would require courage, a descent into the underworld of the self that they refuse. Instead, they project it outward, casting their darkness onto you. The empath, already wrestling with their own shadow, perhaps a lingering belief in their unworthiness, a wound from childhood where love was conditional, becomes the perfect screen for this projection. You absorb their blame, their criticism, because it resonates with the quiet doubts already whispering in your depths. This is the cruel genius of the narcissist's game. They make your own shadow their ally. Attachment theory offers another lens, revealing the primal roots of this dynamic. The narcissist, often shaped by an avoidant attachment, thrives on distance, their ego armored against vulnerability. They crave admiration but recoil from true intimacy, for it threatens the fragile edifice of their self-image. The empath, with an anxious attachment, hungers for closeness, their heart wired to seek reassurance. This mismatch fuels the cycle. The narcissist's withdrawal, emotional, physical, or both, triggers your deepest fears of abandonment. You reach out, you plead, you try harder, believing that if you could just be better, they would stay. But their distance is not about you. It is their own flight from the shadow they cannot face. This interplay is a crucible, a painful forge, where the empath's journey toward individuation is tested. Jung described individuation as the path to wholeness, the integration of the ego and the unconscious, the light and the shadow. Yet under the narcissist's spell, the empath's progress is halted. You may feel fragmented, your sense of self eroded by the constant drip of blame. The narcissist's accusations, subtle or overt, become a mirror that distorts your reflection. You see not your strength, your compassion, your resilience, but a flawed, broken figure. This is the lie you must unravel, the illusion you must shatter. The collective unconscious pulses beneath this struggle, whispering archetypes of the martyr, the savior, the trickster. The empath, drawn to heal, may cast themselves as the savior, believing they can redeem the narcissist's pain. But this is a trap, for the narcissist does not seek redemption, only validation. The trickster archetype, embodied in the narcissist's charm and manipulation, thrives on this misdirection. They keep you chasing a mirage of connection, while the real work, the work of your own soul, waits in the shadows. You stand at a crossroads, empath. Will you continue to carry the narcissist's darkness? Or will you dare to look within, to face your own shadow and reclaim your light? The path is not easy, for it demands you confront the wounds that made you vulnerable to this dynamic. But in that confrontation lies freedom, the first step toward breaking the chains of illusion. and stepping into the truth of who you are. The labyrinth tightens its walls, closing in as the empath navigates the narcissist's maze of mirrors. Each reflection distorts each word from the narcissist, reshapes reality, until the empath's own truth feels like a distant echo. This is no mere game of manipulation, but a profound psychological theft, where the narcissist siphons the empath's light to fuel their own fragile ego. The empath, whose heart is a vessel for the world's unspoken sorrows, becomes a canvas for the narcissist's unacknowledged pain, their unhealed wounds painted as the empath's flaws. This dynamic, steeped in Jungian shadows and the raw pulse of attachment, is a crucible where selfhood is both lost and, if one dares, reclaimed. The narcissist's power lies in their ability to invert reality. They are the alchemist of blame, transmuting their own insecurities into accusations that pierce the empath's soul. You who feel the weight of a room's unspoken tension, who sense the grief beneath a forced smile, are told your sensitivity is a burden. You're too emotional, they might say, their voice laced with disdain. You're making things up. And you, with your heart attuned to truth, begin to doubt. The narcissist's words are not random. They are arrows aimed at the tender places where your own shadow lingers, those quiet fears that you are too much, not enough, inherently flawed. This is the narcissist's sleight of hand. They make you question the very gift that defines you. Jung's concept of projection is the engine of this dynamic. The narcissist, unable to face their shadow, their fear of insignificance, their buried shame, casts it onto you. Their ego, inflated yet brittle, cannot bear the weight of self-reflection. To gaze into their own depths would mean confronting the void they sense within a void they mask with grandiosity. So they externalize it, draping their darkness over you like a shroud. You become the problem, the one who is too sensitive, too demanding, too broken. And you, with your empathic nature, absorb this projection, mistaking it for truth. The collective unconscious hums with this archetype, the scapegoat, the one who carries the sins of others, sacrificing their own light to bear another's shadow. Attachment theory deepens this understanding. The narcissist, often rooted in an avoidant or disorganized attachment, thrives on control, keeping you at arm's length while demanding your devotion. Their withdrawal is a weapon, triggering your anxious attachment, your primal fear of abandonment. You chase, you plead, you reshape yourself to fit their mold, believing that if you could just be what they need, the connection would heal. But the narcissist does not seek healing. They seek a mirror to reflect their idealized self. Your efforts, your love, your vulnerability are fuel for their ego, not a bridge to intimacy. This cycle is a trap, a loop that keeps you tethered to their illusion. The empath's individuation, the sacred journey toward wholeness, is stalled in this dynamic. Jung taught that true selfhood requires integrating the shadow, embracing the parts of ourselves we fear or deny. But the narcissist's projections cloud this process, making you believe your shadow is the whole of you. You may lie awake, haunted by their words, wondering why you feel so small, so wrong. The answer lies in the alchemy of this dance. The narcissist's darkness has merged with your own unhealed wounds, creating a false narrative of your worth. You are not the problem, though the weight of their blame makes it feel so. Yet within this pain lies a spark of transformation. The collective unconscious whispers of the wounded healer, the archetype that knows suffering and emerges stronger. You, empath, are not merely a victim, but a soul on the cusp of awakening. To break free, you must turn inward, face the shadow that the narcissist has amplified but did not create. What wounds do you carry that make their accusations feel true? What part of you believes you must earn love through sacrifice? These questions are not accusations, but invitations calling you to the work of self-reclamation. The narcissist's greatest trick is to make you forget your own power. But you are not their mirror, not their scapegoat. You are a soul with a gift, a heart that feels the world's pulse and dares to love despite its pain. The path out of the labyrinth is not through pleasing them, but through reclaiming you. Dare to look at the reflections they've distorted and see the truth. Your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a flame, one that can light the way to your own wholeness. The empath stands at the edge of a precipice, the narcissist's mirror maze behind them, its distorted reflection still whispering doubts. The air is thick with the weight of internalized blame. The empath's heart heavy with the illusion that they are the problem. Yet beneath this burden pulses a deeper truth, a quiet call from the soul urging them to step forward to reclaim what was stolen. This is no simple untangling, but a descent into the psyche's depths, where Jung's archetypes and the raw truths of attachment collide, forging a path toward liberation. The narcissist's trick has been to bind the empath's light, but the unraveling begins when the empath dares to see themselves clearly. The narcissist's power thrives in the shadows, in the unspoken agreements that keep the empath tethered. They wield silence as deftly as words, their withdrawal a blade that cuts deeper than criticism. You empath know this wound, the sudden coldness, the withheld affection, the subtle shift that leaves you scrambling to restore balance. This is the narcissist's art, to make you feel that their distance is your fault, that your sensitivity provoked it. Their ego, a fragile fortress, demands your devotion while offering nothing in return. And you, with your heart wired for connection, may bend yourself into knots, trying to bridge a chasm that was never yours to cross. Jung's shadow work offers a map through this terrain. The shadow, those hidden parts of the self, fear, shame, unworthiness, gains power when ignored. The narcissist exploits this, amplifying your shadow with their projections. They call you flawed, and the accusation lands because it echoes wounds you've carried, perhaps from childhood, where love was earned through perfection or sacrifice. But here lies the key. The narcissist's blame is not your truth. It is their shadow externalized to avoid their own reckoning. To break free, you must face your own shadow not as a flaw, but as a teacher. What part of you believes you must diminish yourself to be loved? What wound allows their words to take root? Attachment theory reveals the primal roots of this struggle. The narcissist's avoidant dance, offering just enough warmth to keep you hooked, then pulling away triggers your anxious need for closeness. You may chase their approval, believing that if you could just be enough, they would stay. But their withdrawal is not about you. It is their fear of vulnerability, their inability to face the void within. The empath, with their longing for authentic connection, becomes trapped in this cycle, mistaking the narcissist's manipulation for a puzzle to solve. You cannot fix them, for their healing lies beyond your reach. The work is yours to untangle your worth from their distortions. The collective unconscious hums with archetypes that illuminate this journey. The narcissist embodies the trickster, weaving illusions to maintain control. The empath, with their healer's heart, may cast themselves as the martyr, sacrificing their light to save another. But this is a false role, a script that keeps you bound. The true archetype waiting to emerge is the hero, the one who ventures into the underworld of the self and returns transformed. This is the path of individuation, Jung's call to integrate the ego and the unconscious, to weave light and shadow into wholeness. You are not the problem, but the solution lies in reclaiming your narrative. The narcissist's greatest trick is to make you forget your sovereignty. They thrive on your doubt, feeding off the energy you pour into appeasing them. But what if you turned that energy inward? What if you asked, not, "What's wrong with me?" but "What is true about me?" The empath's gift. Your gift is not a flaw, but a rare capacity to feel the world's pulse, to hold space for its pain and beauty. This gift, when turned toward yourself, becomes a beacon. It lights the way through the maze, revealing the narcissist's projections for what they are: illusions, not truths. The journey out is not without pain. It requires facing the grief of what you hoped the narcissist could be, the love you poured into a void. It demands confronting your own wounds, the places where you learned to doubt your worth. But in this confrontation lies freedom. You are not their mirror, not their scapegoat. You are a soul with a flame that cannot be extinguished, a heart that can heal itself. The narcissist's trick may have dimmed your light, but it cannot erase it. Step forward, empath, and let the mirrors fall. The truth of who you are is waiting. The empath's journey through the narcissist's maze is a descent into the soul's crucible, where illusions burn away to reveal raw truth. The narcissist's greatest trick, convincing you that you are the problem, has woven a spell of doubt, but the threads are fraying. Each step toward self-awareness loosens the chains as the empath begins to see the projections for what they are not, reflections of their worth, but shadows cast by another's unhealed psyche. This is the turning point where Jung's archetypes and the pulse of attachment theory converge, guiding the empath toward a reckoning, not with the narcissist, but with themselves. The narcissist's power lies in their ability to keep you tethered to their narrative. Their words, their silences, their calculated withdrawals are all designed to make you question your reality. You empath, with your heart open to the world's unspoken pain, feel this manipulation acutely. A single cold glance can unravel you, sending you spiraling into self-doubt. What did I do wrong, you ask, as if your very existence provoked their discontent. This is the narcissist's alchemy, turning your sensitivity into a weapon against you. They thrive on your willingness to carry their blame, to absorb their shadow as if it were your own. Jung's concept of the shadow is a beacon in this darkness. The narcissist's shadow, their shame, their fear of being ordinary, is too heavy for them to bear. So they project it onto you, making you the scapegoat for their inner chaos. But you too have a shadow, those tender wounds of unworthiness or fear of rejection that make their accusations feel true. The work of individuation. Jung's path to wholeness demands that you face these wounds, not as proof of your brokenness, but as portals to your strength. What part of you believes you must earn love through sacrifice? What old story keeps you bound to the narcissist's lies? These questions are not accusations, but invitations to reclaim your power. Attachment theory reveals the primal dance at play. The narcissist's avoidant nature, their need for control, their fear of true intimacy, clashes with your anxious longing for connection. Their withdrawal triggers your deepest fears, pulling you into a cycle of chasing, pleasing, and reshaping yourself to fit their mold. But their distance is not a reflection of your worth. It is their own flight from vulnerability. You cannot heal them, for their journey lies beyond your reach. The healing is yours to claim, and it begins with releasing the need for their validation. You are enough, not because they see it, but because it is true. The collective unconscious hums with archetypes that guide this awakening. The narcissist plays the trickster, weaving illusions to maintain their fragile ego. You empath may have cast yourself as the savior, believing your love could redeem them. But this role is a trap, draining your light into their void. The archetype waiting to emerge is the warrior, the one who fights not against the narcissist, but for their own soul. This is the hero's journey, a descent into the underworld of the self to reclaim what was lost. You are not the problem, but the solution lies in rewriting the story you've been told about yourself. The narcissist's trick is to make you forget your own radiance. They feed on your doubt, your willingness to carry their darkness. But what if you refused? What if you turned your compassion inward, tending to the wounds that made you vulnerable to their manipulation? Your sensitivity is not a flaw, but a gift, a rare ability to feel the world's pulse and hold space for its beauty and pain. When you embrace this, the narcissist's mirrors lose their power. You see through the illusions, recognizing that their blame was never about you. This path is not without grief. You may mourn the dream of what the narcissist could have been, the connection you hoped to forge. You may ache for the parts of yourself you gave away, believing they were unworthy. But in this grief lies transformation. The empath's heart, so attuned to the world's suffering, can also hold its own pain with tenderness. You are not defined by the narcissist's projections, but by the courage to face your own shadow, to integrate your light and darkness into a whole radiant self. Step into this truth, empath. Let the narcissist's illusions crumble. Your gift is not a burden, but a flame, one that can light the way to your own liberation. The maze is behind you now, and the path ahead is yours to forge. Reclaim your story, and let it be one of strength, not sacrifice. The empath emerges from the narcissist's maze, not unscathed, but illuminated, their heart bearing the scars of a battle fought in the shadows. The narcissist's greatest trick, convincing you that you are the problem, has begun to unravel its threads, loosening as you step into the light of self-awareness. This is no triumphant escape, but a quiet revolution, a reclamation of the soul's sovereignty. The journey is far from over, for the work of untangling the narcissist's illusions requires a descent into the deepest layers of the psyche, where Jung's archetypes and the primal truths of attachment converge to forge a path toward wholeness. The narcissist's spell lingers in the echoes of their words, in the subtle ways they've trained you to doubt your own reality. You empath, with your gift of feeling the world's unspoken currents, may still hear their voice in quiet moments. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. You're not enough. These accusations are not truths, but projections, the narcissist's shadow cast upon you to shield them from their own fragility. Their ego, a brittle monument to their unacknowledged fears, cannot withstand the mirror of self-reflection. So they make you their mirror, reflecting back only what serves their illusion. But you are no longer bound to this role. Jung's concept of individuation calls you to this moment. The path to wholeness is not about erasing your wounds, but embracing them, weaving your shadow into the fabric of your being. The narcissist's trick has amplified your own shadow, those hidden fears of unworthiness, those moments when you believed love must be earned through sacrifice. To break free, you must face these shadows, not with shame, but with curiosity. What wound made you vulnerable to their blame? What part of you still seeks validation from those who cannot give it? These questions are lanterns guiding you through the darkness, toward a self that is whole, not fragmented. Attachment theory illuminates the primal roots of this struggle. The narcissist's avoidant dance, their push and pull, their fleeting warmth, followed by cold withdrawal, has kept you tethered to their orbit. Your anxious attachment, your longing for connection, makes their distance feel like a verdict on your worth. You may have chased their approval, believing that if you could just be enough, they would stay. But their withdrawal is not about you. It is their own fear of intimacy, their inability to face the void within. The work is not to change them, but to release yourself from the cycle, to find a love that does not demand your diminishment. The collective unconscious pulses with archetypes that guide this awakening. The narcissist, the trickster, thrives on deception, weaving a web of illusions to maintain control. You empath may have played the martyr, sacrificing your light to heal their pain. But the archetype now emerging is the alchemist, the one who transforms suffering into wisdom. This is the hero's journey, not to slay the narcissist, but to reclaim your own soul. You are not the problem, but the solution lies in rewriting the narrative of your worth, in seeing your sensitivity as a gift, not a flaw. The narcissist's greatest trick is to make you forget your own power, to keep you tethered to their drama. But what if you turned your gaze inward, tending to the heart that has carried so much? Your empathy, your ability to feel the world's pulse, is a sacred flame. It allows you to hold space for pain, yours and others, with a tenderness that is not weakness, but strength. The narcissist cannot dim this light unless you allow it. You are not their mirror, not their scapegoat. You are a soul with a story, one that is yours to write. This journey demands courage, for it asks you to grieve not just the narcissist's betrayal, but the parts of yourself you gave away. It asks you to face the pain of unhealed wounds, the moments when you learned to doubt your worth. But in this grief lies liberation. Your heart, so attuned to the world's suffering, can also hold your own with grace. You are not defined by the narcissist's projections, but by the resilience to rise, to integrate your light and shadow into a self that is whole. Step forward. Empath into the truth of who you are. The narcissist's maze is behind you, its mirrors shattered by the clarity of your own vision. Your sensitivity is not a burden, but a beacon, a light that can guide you home. The individual who truly understands their depths extends that grace to the world.